No. Photo.
By the administrator of Rivers State, and of course is accompanied by members of his economic team, led by the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance of Rivers State. We have the Accountant General and other relevant members of the economic team. Before we proceed, I would just like us to take a few minutes to do introduction on both sides so that Nigerians, through the gentlemen of the press, are clear as to the people who are participating in this proceeding. So I'm going to start.
Administrator and your team. My name is David Jumkucha.
Mr. Chairman, my distinguished colleagues, my name is Mohammed.
Advisor to Mr. President on Senate matters, distinguished Senator Bashir Lado.
To recall that Rivers State is currently under emergency rule, which was proclaimed and duly gazetted in March 2025. Regulation 4.2F of the Emergency Rule 2025 requires authorization for expenditure from the consolidated revenue of Rivers State for its activities. The sole administrator is here in person to defend the budget as forwarded by Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, you may wish to invite the sole administrator to introduce himself and proceed with the budget defense.
Save you the trouble of having to present everybody. Let the members of your team just do a quick self-introduction. After that, I'll make my remarks and I'll bring you back to the microphone to present.
I'm the administrator of Rivers State, Vice Admiral retired, Ibokete IBAS. Starting from the right.
Very distinguished senators.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished senators, I'm Nnamdi Wike, Senior Special Advisor to the President.
Sir, and members of the committee, I stand on the existing protocols. My name is Uche Idozo.
Well, in my short remark, let me again recognize the Chief Whip of the Senate, the Deputy Chief Whip of the Senate, the minority, the minority whip is also here, and then the Deputy Minority Whip, who is also the Vice Chairman of this committee, and then of course, once again, recognize and welcome the sole administrator of Rivers State, and as well as members of Rivers State Economic Council and team. Recognize all our invited guests once again and the gentlemen of the press. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all of us who are here as members of this committee, and on behalf of His Excellency, distinguished Senator Godswill Akpabio, GCON, President of the Senate, the leadership of the Senate, and indeed distinguished members of this ad hoc committee and the entire 109 senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I welcome you all to this budget defense session. It is both an honor and a solemn duty to welcome you all to this crucial sitting of the Senate Ad hoc Committee on Oversight of Emergency Rule in Rivers State. Today's session marks another milestone in our collective resolve to uphold constitutional governance, promote fiscal discipline, and ensure accountability in the public service of Rivers State. Let me begin by extending my deepest appreciation to every member of the committee. You have, without hesitation, suspended personal convenience during this legislative recess to attend to this pressing call to national duty. That singular act of commitment, especially your contribution to this oversight exercise in the last 3 days, is proof that leadership is not a title, but a responsibility. Your diligence in the screening exercise held over the past 2 days, where presidential nominees for appointment to chairman and membership positions of the Rivers State boards and agencies were thoroughly examined, is both admirable and commendable. It demonstrates the seriousness with which you approach the delicate balance between national interests and democratic responsibility. For the record, emergency rule is not a replacement for democratic government in any political climate. Rather, it is an extraordinary measure designed to restore order in times of disorder, peace in place of conflict, and stability instead of instability. And its application, as it is in Rivers State, is not by fiat, as some people have insinuated, but in consistency with Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, and other relevant laws that guide all the interventions of the Presidency and this National Assembly. Distinguished colleagues, it is upon this premise that the authority of the Senate under the presidency of His Excellency Senator Godswill Akpabio, GCON, constituted this ad hoc committee to oversight the state of emergency in Rivers State. This ad hoc committee has been discharging its core mandate to ensure that Rivers State is governed consistent with the provisions of the 1999 Constitution and democratic tenets. We have convened today to formally review the detailed estimates of the Rivers State 2025 Appropriation Bill, which was presented to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria by the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed TINUBU, GCFR, on Tuesday, the 27th day of May 2025. Distinguished Senators, the Rivers State sole administrator, members of the Rivers State economic team here present, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, please recall that the Rivers State 2025 Appropriation Bill was read on Wednesday, 28 May 2025, for the second time on the floor of the Senate and referred to the ad hoc committee with a mandate to conduct further legislative action and report our recommendations back to the Senate within 1 week. Our task today is not ceremonial. Rather, it is purely legislative and deeply consequential. We are gathered to ensure that every line of the appropriation bill aligns with the socio-economic realities of Rivers State. We must not forget that this budget will define the direction of governance, intervention, and infrastructure renewal in the state. We have held a series of meetings in preparation for this budget defense to enable the sole administrator and members of the Rivers State economic team present and justify the estimates on the bill to ensure that the ad hoc committee makes informed recommendations to the Senate. As presented before the National Assembly recently, an aggregate sum of 1.48 trillion naira was proposed as the 2025 budget and for our consideration, compared to 793.457 billion naira appropriated for the 2024 fiscal year. The 2025 budget represents an increase of 86.63%. The structure of the 2025 budget clearly shows that more funds are budgeted for capital projects. Of the total budget, therefore, 1.072 trillion naira was budgeted for capital expenditure alone. This accounts for about 72.43% of the total expenditure. Also, a total sum of 408.412 billion naira is earmarked for recurrent expenditure, invariably accounting for 27.56% of the aggregate spending. This proposal, as expected, clearly maps out the sources of revenue for the purpose of funding all the programs, projects, and schemes that have been identified for execution. The details of revenue sources are hereunder spelled out. Balance sheet of 220.843 billion naira, federal allocation account, FAC of 559.181 billion naira, independent revenues, 360.460 billion naira, aids and grants, 67.601 billion naira, capital development fund, 34.879 billion naira, loans and debts, 250 billion naira. For the purpose of emphasis, distinguished colleagues, the debt component of this budget is 250 billion naira compared to 237 billion naira in the 2024 fiscal year, which accounts for an increase of 5.49%. This also constitutes about 16.59% of the aggregate budget estimate itself. In the same way, debt service for the 2025 fiscal year is proposed to go up about 120.809 billion naira compared to 76.924 billion naira in the previous year. The difference shows a 57.89% increase above what the state budgeted for debt service in the 2024 fiscal year. In addition to our duty of budget review, this committee carries a continuous oversight responsibility that goes beyond today's defense session. As representatives of the Nigerian people, we are not only tasked with evaluating figures, but also with ensuring the faithful implementation of the budget. It is our mandate to track how allocated resources are utilized, project by project, sector by sector, to guarantee transparency and uphold accountability in the use of public funds. This means that our engagement today on the Rivers State 2025 Appropriation Bill does not end. We shall, in the coming months, assess the performance of the budget by closely monitoring disbursements, execution timelines, and delivery outcomes. Our objective is to ensure that approved funds translate into meaningful development and that deviations or delays are addressed promptly in the overriding public interest. Beyond the numbers, we must evaluate the real-world impact of this budget on the everyday lives of the people of Rivers State. In times of political uncertainty and emergency governance, government actions must not only be lawful, but also people-centered. We must ask, will the budget deliver improved roads, healthcare, education, safety, and livelihoods for the people? This ultimately is how we build trust in government and public institutions like ours. When citizens can see and feel the dividends of democracy, when allocations on paper become tangible solutions on the ground, their faith in governance is renewed. It is this trust we must work to restore and strengthened through our recommendations and sustained legislative vigilance. Today, the sole administrator, Vice Admiral Bokete IBAS retired, and members of his team will present and defend the Rivers State 2025 Appropriation Bill. I therefore seek the indulgence of the committee member to invite the sole administrator to make his presentation. To the Rivers State team, we thank you for your readiness to appear before the committee. We appreciate the work you have done so far in establishing the affairs of the state, and we look forward to engaging with your presentation constructively and rigorously. In conclusion, let me reaffirm once again that National Assembly is committed to democratic tenets and will ensure that governance is preserved, and this committee remains committed to national development and institutional integrity. Let us, therefore, make history with the quality of our work today. Long live Rivers State, long live Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, long live Federal Republic of Nigeria. I thank you all, and may God bless you as distinguished senators. And it's important that I emphasize some of those ground rules for the purpose of having a smooth proceeding today. Ground rule number one is that we stay as quiet as possible. We are not only silent, we also listen to other people in silence. Number two, there is time allocation for everyone who is invited to speak. And I guess the only exception to that today will be the administrator who is going to be leading the defense. Then ground rule number three, our mobile phones must be either switched off or put inside.
In furtherance of our shared responsibility in managing the affairs of Rivers State, I wish to extend my sincere appreciation to the chairman and distinguished members for your dedication to fulfilling your constitutional mandate, particularly in the light of the very tight schedules of the members of this committee. This committee has dedicated most of the last 2 days screening our nominees for appointment into various boards of commissions and agencies. The diligent and thorough engagement with the nominees is a testament of the seriousness this most distinguished committee places on the task before us all. We in Rivers State are most grateful for your dedication and commitment. Following the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed TINUBU, GCFR, President Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, pursuant to Section 11, Subparagraph 4 of 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and the pronouncement of the Supreme Court on Rivers State 2025 appropriation, I was directed by Mr. President to develop a budget proposal for Rivers State. I subsequently submitted a budget proposal to Mr. President, which he graciously transmitted to the National Assembly for consideration. Furthermore, we received a correspondence from this distinguished committee requesting for information regarding the 2024 budget performance, revenue and expenditure of the state from January 2025 to date, as well as the details of the 2025 budget proposal. I am pleased to inform the committee that we have largely compiled and transmitted the requested information, which I believe is with you. A quick review of the official records for the 2024 budget shows that the total revenue of Rivers State government was 1.04 trillion naira compared to a target of 800.39 billion naira. This represented 250.37 billion naira or 31.6% above the budget target. On the expenditure side, official budget performance report shows total expenditure was 740.7 billion naira. This was 52.72 billion naira, or 6.6% less than the spending target. It is my well-considered opinion that the expenditures were clearly understated. The proposed 2025 Rivers State government budget aligns with the strategic objectives outlined in the Rivers State Development Plan 2017-2027. Importantly, the budget proposal before you may not be a perfect document, given the time and circumstances of its development. Regrettably, also, some state officials withheld critical information required to ensure a more complete capture of those expenditures undertaken in the first quarter at the time of submission of the budget estimates. However, the budget proposal presents an integrated framework to strengthen revenue mobilization, accelerate infrastructure delivery, enhance human capital, and promote inclusive economic growth. The budget is crafted as a people-centered fiscal blueprint responsive to present challenges and future development imperatives. We are optimistic that implementing the budget proposal will deliver great socioeconomic benefits for the people of Rivers State. The proposed 2025 budget was meticulously designed to account for and regularize expenditure already undertaken during the first quarter of the fiscal year by the suspended administration before the state of emergency declaration by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. The total revenue projected for the 2025 fiscal year is 1.490 trillion naira. As at 31st May 2025, total revenue inflows were about 415 billion naira, which is about 8% higher than the 383 billion naira projected. The total expenditure plan for 2025, like I stated earlier, is 1.80 trillion naira as submitted to Mr. President. However, after receipt of the additional information on the first quarter expenditure, the reviewed projected expenditure for 2025 is 1.846 trillion naira. However, recognizing the exigencies under the state of emergency and the need to ensure fiscal credibility, the budget framework integrates expenditure information made available before the submission of the budget proposal to ratify first quarter expenditures within a lawful and transparent structure. This ensures alignment with statutory appropriation protocols while safeguarding the integrity of public finance management. Additionally, in anticipation of the eventual return to constitutional order, the draft budget prudently retains provisions for the offices and functions of suspended political actors, some of whom have already drawn unallocated resources in the first quarter and are expected to resume their duties at the expiration of the emergency period. Considering the prevailing security challenges and the formal declaration of state of emergency on security by Mr. President, the budget prioritizes restoring peace, public order, community stability, and measures to secure national assets within Rivers State. The budget provides robust allocations to support a multifaceted security framework to curb insecurity and substantially prevent future escalation. In acknowledgement of the complex and evolving nature of insecurity we face in Rivers State, particularly as it relates to militancy, cult-related violence, kidnapping, and intercommunal conflicts, the budget provides substantial resources for intelligence gathering and analysis. These resources will support data collection and analytics to improve interagency collaboration designed to detect and neutralize threats before they materialize. Importantly, these efforts will be coordinated under a unified security architecture designed to streamline command structures, avoid duplication of efforts, and enhance operational efficiency and accountability. The aim is to create a centralized yet responsive framework capable of deploying resources quickly, coordinating crisis responses, and engaging stakeholders, including traditional rulers, civil society organizations, and youth leaders in ongoing peace-building efforts. With a record allocation of 324.51 billion naira to critical physical infrastructure, the administration is prioritizing completing high-impact roads, bridges, and transport networks to improve connectivity, facilitate commerce, and stimulate economic activities across rural and urban areas. This also includes 38.85 billion naira allocated for shoreline protection, land reclamation, and erosion control, supporting long-term environmental resilience and disaster mitigation efforts. In the agricultural sector, the budget aligns with Nigeria's broader food security goals through a 4.5 billion naira counterpart funds for the Rural Access and Agricultural Marketing Program to unlock about 45 billion naira to open up rural access to farms and markets, 10 billion naira for food security, an initiative aimed at catalyzing the scaling up of local production in rice, cassava, oil palm, maize, poultry, and coconut. There is also a provision for 3.5 billion naira for investments in agricultural mechanization to boost food production. These interventions are projected to generate over 16,000 direct and indirect jobs within 2 years, if sustained. Health sector investments are equally substantial, including 55 billion naira for the relocation and expansion of the Rivers State University Teaching Hospital, 50 billion naira for zonal hospitals upgrades, and 5.0 billion naira for a drug revolving fund to strengthen essential medicine supply system. The education sector receives targeted investments of 30 billion naira for zonal secondary schools and 5.75 billion naira for primary schools rehabilitation, in addition to the 1.5 billion naira in special schools to support our initiatives for inclusive education. The budget also demonstrates a strong commitment to gender equity and youth development, with 2.5 billion naira dedicated to women economic empowerment and 3 billion naira for the establishment of a youth resource center aimed at capacity building, innovation, and enterprise development. Furthermore, the budget reflects a comprehensive people-centered approach to governance with targeted investments across housing, environmental protection, public administration, financial inclusion, and security. The state has earmarked 25 billion naira for intervention in housing schemes to expand access to homes for middle-income families, alongside the rehabilitation of state-owned estates to address urban congestion, improve living conditions, and further stimulate the construction sector with its attendant impact on job creation. Environmental resilience is a top priority with significant provisions for flood mitigation and waterway rehabilitation. These interventions, if implemented, will reduce displacement in riverine communities and safeguard vital ecosystems amid rising climate risk. In public administration, the budget commits over 117 billion naira to pensions, gratuities, and employee benefits, marking a decisive shift towards restoring dignity and welfare in the civil service. This includes a 50 billion naira provision to begin to address the long-standing issues around pensions and gratuity arrears owed to retirees in Rivers State. Notably, the implementation of the Employee Compensation Act and a new group life insurance scheme reflects global best practices in labor protection. The state also plans to inject 20 billion naira into the recapitalization of the Rivers State Microfinance Bank, aimed at empowering micro, small, and medium enterprise and underserved populations, especially youth and women, with improved access to affordable credit. These measures support inclusive economic growth and grassroots development. God willing, every River citizen with a great idea, carefully thought out, and well-planned will find the funding they require to turn their dreams into successful ventures, irrespective of tribe, ethnicity, or political divide. Across all provisions, the budget reinforces Mr. President's directive to deliver on River State's development priorities, sustain critical government functions, and ensure the continuity of programs that directly impact the lives and livelihoods of the people of River State. In conclusion, the proposed 2025 River State budget is structured to support inclusive development, restore public trust, and deepen socioeconomic reforms. It reflects fiscal responsibility, forward-looking governance, a strong commitment to human capital development, continued infrastructural renewal, dedicated investment in security and institutional integrity during this critical transition period. The budget proposal demonstrates a commitment to both immediate impact and long-term resilience through strategic allocations across critical sectors such as works, agriculture, health, education, women, and youth empowerment. The deliberate provision for institutional continuity and respect for democratic norms amid political tension underscores a governance ethos grounded in constitutionalism, accountability, and commitment to restore democratic order in line with Mr. President's mandate. Overall, the budget reflects not just fiscal planning, but a strategic repositioning of River State for sustainable growth, social cohesion, and a renewed contract between government and its people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we once again thank all of you for your time and attention to this matter. Let me also once again thank our distinguished colleagues for their time. I report progress by saying that this ad hoc committee had deliberated extensively on the budget proposal submitted by the administrator of Rivers State through the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. It was submitted to us as an executive bill. And as you are aware, gentlemen of the press, we had taken both the first and second reading of this bill, where the general principles of this budget were debated on the floor of the Senate, just like it was done on the floor of the House of Representatives. As we are also aware, distinguished gentlemen of the press, the administrator and his team had appeared before our counterpart ad hoc committee of the House of Representatives. And today they have just done the same before our committee here in the Red Chamber. And as much as possible, I want to report that in addition to the opportunity we had to review this budget and its general principles as well as details in the last 3 weeks since it was presented in May 2025, we had also had the opportunity to directly engage with the administrator as well as members of his team, including the Accountant General of Rivers State Government, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance of Rivers State, the Director of Budget of Rivers State Government, the Director of Planning of Rivers State Government, all of whom had been in office before the emergency rule commenced, and none of whom was suspended or prevented from doing the day-to-day administration of the government through their MDAs. It's also on record that at least 85% of the budget estimates presented to us today were the budget estimates already drawn up by the Fubara-led administration before the emergency rule. They had increased it by some 15% or so based on projects, additional projects that needed to be executed. In the course of our interaction with the administrator and his economic team, we also learned as a committee that part of what they needed to do as a matter of urgency and as part of our wanting to enhance the peace process in Rivers State and ensure the happiness of workers is to inject a sum of 50 billion naira to take care of part of the liabilities in the area of payment of pensions and gratuities, which the administrator feels so strongly about, and with which we also agree, because this is not just about brick and mortar, talking about project, this is about direct welfare of people who are served all their lives in the service of the government and people of Rivers State, and who also deserve to be paid their pensions and gratuities. And that's part of what explains the need for additional budgetary provision, and that took it beyond what was put there by the administration, before the advent of the emergency rule. Our committee also notes with satisfaction the fact that over 70% of this budget, as proposed, is going into capital expenditure. We feel that this is highly commendable, and it means that less than 30% of this will go into recurrent expenditure, and a negligible part of it going into consumables in the name of overhead. We commend this to all our state governments in ensuring that a greater percentage of our budgetary provisions are committed to capital expenditure so that people can continue to get the dividends of democracy. We asked questions, we sought for clarifications, both the administrators as well as the accompanying team members, especially the Accountant General and the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance, were very involved and very active in answering our questions and providing the information that we needed. Gentlemen of the press, at this point, we are going to be bringing these proceedings to a close so that our committee can adjourn now and we'll let guests depart. And we also have requested that the administrator will leave behind to still work with this committee some of the members of his economic team, including the Accountant General and the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance and their directors, so that as we walk through this weekend, they'll be available between now and Monday to still be able to, further work with the committee as to the fine lines and details. It is our intention that by Monday, we would have the initial draft of our report ready. This committee will reconvene again formally and look through and adopt it so that we'll be able to present it to this Senate plenary when we resume next week. But again, gentlemen of the press, let me thank you for your interest in us and in what we're doing. And sorry if the administrator is not able to answer questions as he exits, especially political questions. He's not involved in the politics of Rivers. His assignment is very strict and straight, governance all the way, and we have refused to drag him into anything political, and we agree. So he's here purely to talk about budget, as it relates to governance. I just want to thank you, and I would ask my distinguished colleagues if all I've said is a true reflection of our deliberations here. Those in support of that say aye. Aye. Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. So at this point, may I most respectfully call for a motion for adjournment.
23rd June 2020. No. Photo.